Hi, everybody. I'm Day Wilson from FODMAP Every Day, and we are about to start another of our Facebook Live events. This afternoon, we have one of our success team members, Rachel Meltzer Warren. She is a registered dietitian who specializes in teens and young adults and their nutritional paths. And specifically, we're going to be getting into the low FODMAP diet, how they can still stick to it or start it once they leave from home. But first, I'll just give you a little introduction if you haven't joined us before. FODMAP Every Day is a low FODMAP resource brand. We consider our website our hub of activity, although you can find us here on Facebook, on Instagram, and elsewhere. And we are a team that are dedicated to helping you follow the low FODMAP diet successfully. We have a success team made up of registered dietitians, of complementary health practitioners. We have a dedicated test kitchen where we develop all original recipes and content. And in fact, we're the only people in the world who have Monash certified low FODMAP recipes that are free to you, the end user. So there's tons of reasons for you to come join us on the site. But today, hopefully you're joining us here. This is going to be live for about the next 30 minutes or so. It will be recorded as well. If you are live and you want to ask a question, you can just type it down below. We will hope to get to all of them. And if you're watching this after the fact, feel free to contact us or Rachel through the website, and we will be sure to answer you. So Rachel, welcome. It's so really great to have you for this event. Rachel, as I mentioned, is a registered dietitian. She also has a master's. She works in journalism as well as in the field of nutrition. She's been a vegetarian since she was a teenager. She became interested in nutrition first from a personal point of view, and she has gone on to really dedicate her time to teens and young adults, as I said. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like for a teenager. So maybe you're a teen or young adult and you are joining us, or maybe you're a parent of a teen or young adult. Maybe you've just started the low FODMAP diet. Maybe you're thinking about it. And maybe this is all happening at the same time that you're moving away from home and you're going to college and you're going to be in a dorm room. Or maybe you're going to be in a house where you have your own kitchen for the first time, whether that's concurrent with school or not. And all of these things sort of add some complexities to following the low FODMAP diet. So Rachel, welcome. I mean, first, I just want to give you a moment to sort of say hi to everybody and introduce yourself on your own.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I think you did a great job of introducing me. The only thing I would add is that I'm also the author of a book for teens and young adults about the low FODMAP diet called A Teen's Guide to Gut Health. So that's also a great resource. And like you said, FODMAP Every Day is just a one-stop shop, just amazing recipes, experts, so many resources for people there.
And we should mention that, as you mentioned, so A Teen's Guide to Gut Health, the subtitle is The Low FODMAP Way to Tame IBS, Crohn's, yep, hold it up there, colitis, and
on the cover.
Yes. Well, the reason why I wanted to mention the subtitle is because we are talking about the low FODMAP diet today. And of course, when we do, we focus a lot on irritable bowel syndrome, but your book and your counseling also addresses Crohn's, colitis, and other digestive issues that the diet can possibly help. So let's just jump right in there. I mean, is it even possible for someone to follow this diet if they're at college? And let's say, their parents have purchased them, or sometimes people are pressured into purchasing a meal plan, right? So what are the strategies?
Yes, and for most schools, if you're living on campus, you often have to participate in the meal plan. So there really isn't a choice there. So is it possible to follow the low FODMAP diet at college in the dining hall is a great question. And the answer really depends on the stage of the diet you're at. I mean, anything is possible. And a person could follow the low FODMAP diet at any stage if they really, really had to. But as anybody who's probably watching this today knows already, the low FODMAP diet has 3 phases, right? Is very restrictive. And reintroduction sounds a bit easier because you are starting to add in some other foods, but it requires quite a bit of control and careful eating to work through those different types of foods that you're reintroducing to test your tolerance. Maintenance is when ideally a person's identified the higher FODMAP foods that they can tolerate, and they've altered their diet to include those foods. So one thing I always recommend is that if a person do as much of the elimination phase as possible when they have the most control over their life. So when they are living in the dorms, in the college dining hall, that is not an ideal time to undertake the elimination phase. It can be done, it's possible, but what I usually urge the people that I work with to do is wait until a time when they will have a little bit more control over what they're eating. So if you're a soon-to-be college student, so, it's June now, and college people start leaving for college usually mid-August. Now would be a great time to get started with the elimination phase. And at least you'll get through a decent amount of the reintroduction, and you'll be on your way by the time you start the meal plan. Starting the low FODMAP elimination when you're on the meal plan is definitely more complicated. So the more control, the better.
This is a great point. So one of the reasons we're doing this now. So we have this built-in time during the summer. You're recommending that. Now, of course, we're hoping and assuming that you, the teen or young adult, you have gone to a gastroenterologist. You have gotten a formal diagnosis for irritable bowel syndrome, and perhaps the doctor even mentioned, "Hey, you should try this diet." So now you have that diagnosis, the diet is here, it can help up to 75% of you be symptom-free, so it's worth the time to take the time during the summer to figure out the most restrictive elimination portion, as Rachel mentioned. And the other thing I was just thinking in terms of strategy is, so while you're home and you are probably familiar with the supermarkets at your home, as you're getting familiar with the foods that you can eat, now when you go away, you're not dealing with that extra thing of having to identify the foods. You've already identified the foods. Maybe now you only have to learn the new layout of a new supermarket. But so great idea to start now. So you kind of answered another follow-up question, which is what is the best time for students or young adults to try? And so we're saying, what you're saying, minimize the impact, right? So if you're still at home and you have that, it's a good time. So now let's say you're in high school and you've already been following the diet and you've gotten through the introduction phase and you feel like as the patient, you have a pretty good idea of what your low FODMAP and high FODMAP foods are. So now, how do you stick to that? Because now you're not gonna have mom and dad or siblings, checking in on you, and you're really gonna be on your own.
Right, that family safety net is gone. How do you manage it when you're on your own for the first time? Well, and anyone on the low FODMAP diet, after they go through the elimination and the reintroduction, they learn to exist in the real world. And that has its challenges regardless of what stage of life you're in. For somebody who, again, is eating in a dining hall, or maybe they're cooking for themselves for the first time, living in an apartment, there's that added challenge of just figuring out the lay of the land when you're in slightly less control. So for somebody who is in the dining hall, there are a number of things that they can do to make it a bit easier on themselves. So the first one I would say is find your allies in the dining hall. So you might not have mom over your shoulder, you might not have, brothers and sisters looking out for you, but there are people in the dining hall whose job it is to get food to the student population. So, and they know, you might not know by looking at something what's in it. At a dish that's being served in the dining hall, but they know exactly how things are prepared. So, find the food service director, find maybe the head chef. A lot of campuses do have a registered dietitian that works closely with food service. So go in finding that ally that you can talk to and say, these are my restrictions. Can you help me work through a few meals that I can eat? What's safe for me? That grilled chicken looks okay for me, but is it seasoned with garlic and onion powder? Because many are, and you wouldn't know that just from looking. Another thing you can look for, another tool, is information online. So some schools contract with some of the bigger food service companies, and some of those companies actually do post nutrition information that includes ingredients online. So if you're at a school that works with one of those companies, you don't even have to talk to somebody. You can just look for that information and look up the various foods and find out that, oh, those roasted potatoes look good, but they've got garlic powder on them. Okay, I'll skip them. So those are two good tools. Beyond that, I would say figure out a few go-to meals. So maybe with that information from your allies or from that online information, I would say find a few go-to meals. So maybe 2 or 3 meals for breakfast, lunch, dinner, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you go to eat. Right. And just know, these are some things that I like, they work for me. And as time goes on, of course, you can vary them a little bit. But usually those will be, in a dining hall situation, those will be the more DIY kind of meals rather than the square meals like, I don't know, like lasagna where everything is prepared and it's, it's hard to actually decipher what the ingredients are. But for something like the salad bar, you can easily piece together a salad that will work for you. At the sandwich bar, you might be able to do, maybe they have gluten-free bread that's also low FODMAP. Maybe you can do a meat between lettuce type of sandwich. So find a few of those square meals that will work for you and just cycle through them. Again, you're not reinventing the wheel every time. I
was just going to say, I've worked within the dining services at the University of Massachusetts, and I can tell you, if you are a teen or a young adult who's watching, know that these people, take it very seriously. They are there to help you have a good experience at school. And don't be shy. Ask the questions. As Rachel said, not only should you not feel shy about asking, but they will know the answers. Or if they don't know them right off the top of their heads, they will get the answers for you, because it's a matter of your medical health. And then there's just I loved what you said about the lasagna, because we always say, you have to be your best advocate. You do. And you have to become a detective. You have to understand about reading labels. And so the lasagna was such a great example, because someone might say, oh, it's made up of gluten-free noodles, Parmesan cheese, and tomato sauce. Well, what is that tomato sauce? That's not enough of an answer. And you need to know that. That tomato sauce could have onion in it. It could have garlic in it. It could have high fructose corn syrup in it. So as Rachel said, a dish like that, like a casserole kind of dish, probably a really difficult one to attack. But let's say you find out that a particular gluten-free sandwich bread that they serve is fine for you, then doing some plain poached or roasted turkey breast that you have found out does not have onion or garlic, a little mustard, a little mayo, a little tomato, a little lettuce. I mean, you've got a great sandwich. So that was a great point. Another thing, so parents, so now we've been talking about the kids being at school. So now you're the parent or parents, and you're sitting at home and you're like, oh my God, my baby's away on their own. What could they do from afar that might be able to support their student?
Sure. Well, this is understandably so difficult for parents. I would say, again, before they've even left for school, now it's summertime, we have that opportunity. Pass the torch. If you're the parent at home who's been cooking for your teen, they're feeling great because of the foods that you're serving them, and you might see it, of course, as a parent, as your responsibility to keep them healthy. But in the months leading up to school, it's the perfect opportunity to make sure they really understand what the limitations are. Bring them to the grocery store with you. Show them why you buy this granola bar and not that granola bar, so that when they're in a grocery store in a new city, they can decipher, maybe the same brands aren't available there, but they'll know what they're looking for. It's the teach a man to fish proverb, right? Give a child a low FODMAP meal plan and you'll feed them for a day. Give them the tools to understand the low FODMAP plan and they'll control their symptoms for life. So,
And I,
I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I, I,
And also cook with them. Take the time during the summer to cook with them as well. I think that you learn it, you absorb the information in a different way when you're actually working with the ingredients.
Yes. And beyond that, once the school year starts, I would just say make sure that they have the tools and the resources at their fingertips. So make sure your student has the Monash University app so that they can look up foods in a pinch. Make sure they have a book that runs through the basics of the low FODMAP diet, because maybe you're the one that's done that homework for them and conveyed the information to them, but make sure that they have the tools to understand it on their own once again. And aside from that, I would say snacks. Send them snacks. Everybody loves care packages. College students are no exception. And I think a lot of times being on a low FODMAP diet can feel somewhat isolating. You're not maybe going to have the late night pizza with your friends. So there are some great recipes for cookies on the FODMAP Everyday site and lots of other resources too that, bake them some cookies and send enough for them to share with their friends, or send some popcorn, things that that they can enjoy, and give them enough to share with their roommates too, because that'll just remind them that food is meant to be enjoyed and shared and not a source of anxiety.
This is such a great segue into sort of the social aspect of the diet. At home, maybe you've been sitting around the table, everybody in your family has understood what you were going through, so you didn't have to constantly explain. But now you're in this new place, maybe your roommates, certainly you're going to be sitting with people in the dining hall, or people are watching you, ask lots of questions or whatever. And, even for adults, it's very hard. People feel like, I don't want to be singled out. I don't want to be the freak. I don't want to be the weird one. How can teens and young adults talk to their friends about this diet, about what it is that they need to do to help keep themselves healthy without them feeling that, sort of that social ostracization?
Sure. So from the young people that I've worked with, I found that it really depends on the person. And this goes for people of any age, of course. Some people just want to shout it from the rooftops because they find that they need loads of support, and the more people know and the more details they're given, the better. Other people are very uncomfortable about having GI issues. They feel private about the whole thing. They don't want to talk about it with a lot of people. Maybe they have one or two close friends that they can confide in. Maybe when they're making new friends, they do want to keep it to themselves for a while. And I think that that's something that really depends on the person, and everybody has a right to decide what the correct level of disclosure is for them. Of course, having any kind of support is always helpful. So I do encourage people to find that one close person that they can talk to, if nothing else. But when you do share the information with a new friend or roommate or a colleague, if you're just starting to be in the workforce, then I would say keep it pretty simple, because if you start throwing out all of the different foods that you might be restricted, as you know, there isn't always a lot of obvious rhyme or reason to what foods are higher FODMAP foods. So if you just start saying, well, I can't eat onions and garlic and apples, and you throw it out left and right, it sounds pretty overwhelming, and I think that it's harder for people to kind of understand what's going on. So I would give them the bigger picture context. So say something like, my doctor or my dietitian put me on a special diet because I have a sensitivity to certain types of carbohydrates that are found in a lot of different foods. There's a whole bunch of foods I have to avoid, but there's still plenty I could eat. And then go from there. If they're interested in learning more, they'll probably ask you more about it. If that satisfies them, then that's fine too. You've explained it, and they won't look at you that funny the next time you're, asking for the salad without the onions on it, or, being what could be seen as picky, unless somebody understood the background to why you are being picky.
I think there's also a mantra that I come back to all the time, which I think is helpful for anybody, which has to do with serving sizes and portion control. Because let's say you have shared with someone, I can't have onion or garlic. And then they see you eating something. And they say, hey, that has some garlic in it. I thought you told me, they think that you're full of BS because, whatever. And I always say, it has to do with portion control. I can have 2 tablespoons of this ketchup that has onion in it because that is a safe serving. And if people need an analogy, I mean, just look them square in the face and say, if you ate 5 quarts of ice cream, you would feel good either. I mean, portion control is something that people can understand, I think.
I think that's a great idea to add that in as well, that it's about portions and I can tolerate a small amount, but I have to be careful with how much, which is also why it's important to use the word sensitivity. I think sometimes people say allergy because they think others will take that more seriously. And maybe in a restaurant situation, you can say allergy just to make sure they take you seriously. But among friends who are going to see how you eat in different situations, explain the nuance to them.
I don't know if this has happened to you, but I've been in a few situations where I've gone to a server and I start asking questions. And they say, well, why don't you tell me what you need to steer clear of? And then I'll tell you, and obviously you can't go through the whole thing. And even if you do, like you said, they're going to be like, what do apples have to do with garlic? And it's not going to make any sense. And I still haven't sort of steeled myself to do what I really want to do, which is look the person in the eye and say, I have issues with fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. And if you could please make sure that this food doesn't contain any of those, that would be great. I figured that would shut them down.
That probably would. I've never tried that, but now I really want to. Now that you mention it, that would be fun just to see the look on their face. Now, isn't it just easier for you to tell me what's in that dish than
exactly?
Yeah, that's good.
So, guys, who, if you're watching this, seriously, like we said before, don't be shy in asking. That said, you're probably going to come across people who maybe are challenging you, don't believe you, certainly don't understand you. Lord knows it's hard for all of us to really understand this diet easily. But what I always come back to is if you've been in a situation where you've had a digestive upset and you know how horrible that was. This was a serious medical issue for you. It maybe sidelined you from family get-togethers. It sidelined you from school. It sidelined you from, maybe you couldn't go to the prom. I mean, think about those times. Understand, how serious this issue is for you. And there's people like us and the community at FODMAP every day. We know it as well. So you just have to sort of steel yourself and hopefully you don't come across too many of those people.
Right. So now, and if you do, we're here to support you,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now let's say you're an older student, maybe you've moved off campus, you have an apartment of your own, or, some schools you funnel into apartments with kitchens right away. So do you have some ideas for our students and young adults for simple meals that they can make in small kitchens? And, and a lot of these kitchens aren't super well equipped either. So any ideas that you have would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're not confident in the kitchen, living on your own for the first time or having that kitchen for the first time can be really overwhelming. Then you add in some dietary restrictions and, oh my goodness, now what do we do? But like anything else, just finding basic ways, simple ways to start. So something like eggs. Eggs are a safe food on the low FODMAP diet. It depends what you add to them, of course, but learning how to make scrambled eggs, maybe with a little bit, with vegetables like maybe some zucchini or a little bit of spinach and a little bit of feta cheese with some low FODMAP bread. You have a meal. Delicious, right? Super simple. I also love pre-cooked hard-boiled eggs, right? Because hard-boiled eggs are not that hard to make, but if you've never cooked before, that's a kind of overwhelming thing to try to do. And I know I've screwed them up a good number of times before I really figured out how to do them right. So the pre-cooked hard-boiled eggs, buy a bag of those and you have a bunch of meals ready to go because you can mash them up with a little bit of mayo, some greens on a salad. Again, that low FODMAP bread, you can have a sandwich. You can do, and I also like kind of composed meals where you're cobbling together pieces so it feels a little bit more like assembly than cooking. And I think that those are really great training meals to get started. So, a salad always works, but something like a Buddha bowl or, a rice bowl, especially for a newer cook, if you use frozen brown rice or frozen quinoa, and all you really have to do is warm it up. Start with a serving of that in your bowl, add on some greens, some other vegetables, add on a protein. So, again, you could do those hard-boiled eggs. You could do cubed firm tofu. You could do some chicken that's, as long as it's been cooked, without any red light seasonings, and a sauce, and just look for recipes that really jazzes it up. So, on this website, in my book, I have a great Thai peanut sauce that's just a few ingredients you whisk together, and it takes that to the next level. And all you've really done is put a few things in a bowl. Anybody could do that.
This is a great, I love that you mentioned some prepared things. Like you said, you can get quinoa and rice. It's already prepared. You can warm it up. We've just started putting together some shopping lists, and they will be really helpful for all of you who are watching. We already have put out our Trader Joe's list, our Thrive Market list, which means that as a student, you could have food delivered right to where you're living. And we're about to come out with a Whole Foods list. And so these are lists of foods that one of our success team dietitians has determined to be low FODMAP, so it can help you shop even if you don't have a family member to go along with you. And I loved, the scrambled egg thing. The thing about eggs, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. There's so many things that you can do with eggs. And, we talked about like low FODMAP gluten-free sandwich bread before. I also love doing scrambled eggs. You can roll them up in low FODMAP tortillas, and then if you have a low FODMAP salsa, so versatile, really great suggestion to go with the eggs. I happen to always carry around. I actually, back in the kitchen, I have my hard-boiled egg ready for me to snack on when we're done with this. Now, what if you're going out, with friends, and you're going out to typical places that teens and young adults might frequent? Like, let's say you're hitting up Starbucks.
Sure.
What could somebody get?
Yeah, Starbucks is everywhere. So that's a really good place to start. Again, the more kind of clean the ingredient list, the better. The more obvious the ingredients, the better off you are. So at Starbucks, they have something like the protein box. I think they call it the bistro box. And you can't eat. Yeah, again, the egg. You can't eat everything in it. You would toss the little bread. But other than that, I think pretty much everything in that. There's a little fruit, a little the egg, a little bit of cheese.
Great cheese, right.
Yep, and it's like a small serving, so that's perfect. So I would need to look again and remember what exactly is in it, but most of what's in it you can eat. And again, you can see what those ingredients are. They're not mixed in, so there's no mystery. You know what you can eat and give it to a friend and you're done. Other things, at Starbucks, they do offer lactose-free milk. So you can have a coffee drink. The only thing that you want to be wary of is the more flavored drinks, because sometimes those beverages do have dairy in them. So if you're avoiding dairy, getting one of those fancy drinks, maybe it's I don't want to name drinks if I'm just not sure off the top of my head, but those flavored ones, there's always the chance that there's some milk powder or something in that flavoring. So, but something like a latte where it's espresso and milk, done. As long as you're not sensitive to caffeine, you're good. And the oatmeal, of course, you can have the oatmeal at a place like Starbucks. Some other examples, there's Chipotle, which you're limited. There are many, many things at Chipotle that you couldn't eat on a low FODMAP diet. However, you're cobbling the meal together yourself, so you can pick and choose the foods that are. And in my book, I have a chart detailing what are some of the foods that you can eat and what would a meal at Chipotle look like for somebody on a low FODMAP diet. It can be done.
Yeah, I was just reading over the weekend. So the carnitas are low FODMAP. And of course,
yes, at least the last time we checked, things always change. So I would always recommend giving their website a check before you do. But yeah, carnitas.
And in terms of eating out, I always find that sushi restaurants are a great place to go, because doing sashimi, which of course is just pure protein, is fish, and a lot of the maki rolls, the sushi themselves, and wasabi is low FODMAP in small amounts, so you can have some. Soy products, of course, can be confusing for people because there are some high and some low. We have tons of references. I think we have 3 different soy articles on the site, but soy sauce is fine, and so that can be fine for your sushi. So if you're going out, I don't know, if I'm going out with a bunch of people, Mexican and Italian can be difficult, but Japanese restaurants are usually a pretty good bet. So now we were talking about Starbucks. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that Japanese cuisine is also very clean, very identifiable. So something like that. Also, Vietnamese works well because, there's a lot of use of rice noodles, rice paper rolls are wonderful because you have, the rolls themselves are safe. And what's typically in them, tofu, shrimp, lettuce, carrots, mint, these are fine.
My son's girlfriend is Vietnamese. We actually have this awesome step-by-step tutorial on the site of how to make your own Vietnamese summer rolls. And those are, a student, you could do those. You could have them in the fridge. They're portable, something to take with you. So definitely check that out. Now, we were talking about Starbucks, so we hit on coffee. But if you are a young adult, if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, you're probably thinking about alcohol. You're probably thinking, can I drink it? How much can I drink? Now mom and dad aren't watching me. I'm out on my own. Obviously, moderation is key no matter how old you are. But talk a little bit about alcohol and the low FODMAP diet, because it can be done.
It can be done, yes. So, and actually, many young people go to college and find out that alcohol is an IBS trigger for them. So even though many alcohol options are low FODMAPs in moderate amounts, the alcohol in and of itself can be a trigger. So be aware of that. It might not be that it's a FODMAP issue, but the alcohol itself could be triggering your symptoms. But, like everything in the low FODMAP world, portion. So one can of beer is green light. I wouldn't go severely over that. But, in moderation, a can of beer, a glass of wine, vodka is okay. Gin is okay. Rum is red light, so I would avoid any rum-based beverages. But then the thing you really do need to take into consideration is the mixer. What's it getting mixed with? So cranberry juice is not okay. So cranberry and vodka, you're taking a risk there. So if you are choosing to drink, the things you need to remember are drink in moderation. Choose one of the green light beverages. You can check the Monash app to make sure you're okay. Be careful with whatever you're mixing it with. And then I would also say just never drink on an empty stomach, which is good advice in general. But that can also make it harder on your gut and make GI symptoms a little more likely due to alcohol itself. So eat something before you drink.
What you said brought up several things that are coming to mind. First of all, we have a great article on the site on FODMAP stacking, which you guys should read. Everybody should read, which is the idea that you might look at the Monash University smartphone app and you'll see that, well, a quarter cup of this is okay and a quarter cup of that is okay. But if you put them together and they both happen to be the same FODMAP, now you're over the limit in terms of your FODMAP ingestion for that meal or that time frame. So you have to understand about when you're assembling meals or beverages, about FODMAP stacking. And then you mentioned the thing about cranberry juice. So this is so key. So cranberry and orange juice is low FODMAP in really small portions. But when it comes to cranberry juice, you go to the supermarket and there are many, many, many different cranberry juices. And as you know, they're not all the same. And so we were talking earlier about being a detective and reading labels, because you do not want any that have high fructose corn syrup in them. Chances are, if you're at a bar, that's the cranberry juice mixer they're using. But there are cranberry juices that would be okay that maybe you could have at home, again, in small quantities. And then there are things that, like you mentioned, even though alcohol is low FODMAP in small amounts, that it could be a trigger for you. So let's talk about that for a moment. I think that people, let's say you've been dealing with your IBS and things have been horrible and you went to the doctor and the diet was recommended. And so now you're following this diet. And so right now you're in this head space of following what you're being told to do and what is good and what is bad and what is red light and what is green light. And there's definitely a period of time where you really have to rely on outside opinion, but everyone will get to the point where they have to start trusting their own experiences with a particular food. So like you said, maybe one 12-ounce can of beer is labeled as low FODMAP, but after 6 ounces, it triggers you. You need to know that. You need to learn that. You need to sort of watch, maybe wait a few days, try it again. If it happens again, maybe it wasn't a fluke. So, we always recommend using the Monash app. We love it. I use it every day. We obviously work very hard on bringing you recipes that follow those amounts. But in the end, how things are sitting with you, like sparkling water. For some people, sparkling water, right, triggers their IBS.
Yeah, carbonation can be an irritant, caffeine can be an irritant, alcohol. So yeah, just really, I think also just keeping track of what you're eating and not relying on your memory, because a couple days go by and you can kind of forget. You think in the moment you're going to remember everything, but whether you're using an app or writing it down in a journal, a food journal, I find that it's really helpful for people to have some documentation that they can go back to look at their symptoms and start to piece it together themselves, because some of these things are just not answers that somebody else can give you. You have to really understand how it works for your body.
Exactly. So we talked a little bit beforehand, and we were going to touch on, restaurants, like what do you do if you're going out on a date? And we talked about restaurants a little bit ago, but I think that when you're going out on a date, there's this added level, right? There's stress, and that can sometimes even aggravate your IBS symptoms. And I would certainly say that if you're going out on a date, that maybe you want to go to a restaurant that you've been to, or maybe you call ahead or look at the menu ahead online, right? Most restaurants have the menus online, and sort of pre-plan your scheme of attack.
Yep. No, go in with a plan. Look, I always prefer local, homegrown kind of restaurants, but this is an instance where chain restaurants really come in handy, because oftentimes they have all of their nutrition information, including ingredients, listed online. So you can go to their website and find out exactly, and it's very standardized, so you never have to worry that somebody's in the back throwing in a little bit of this or a little bit of that. You know exactly what's in it. So that can be a helpful route to go. Go to a chain restaurant where you could look up the ingredients, or a place that you've been before and can trust. You've asked them questions. You already know what you can eat safely. But those menus that are online are a fantastic resource. Always go in with a plan.
Right. And obviously not a time to overindulge in alcohol, and maybe not a time to try a food that you haven't tried before. Just, be prudent so that you come out the other end having had a good experience.
Exactly.
So we're going to wrap up soon. And so I'm thinking we've been focusing so much on diet. And of course, at FODMAP Every Day, we do focus on the diet, but we talk a lot about associated strategies that can help someone manage their IBS. So could you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. So when it comes to managing IBS, diet is not everything. It can be a huge part of it, but there are so many other things that you can do. And as really most people with IBS know, stress and gut issues are very tightly connected. So if you're going off to college and you've got new friends and new social situations and midterms and other big papers to write, that can be a lot. Just like if you're moving to an apartment for the first time and maybe entering the workforce for the first time. These are all very stress-inducing situations. And it's important to note that stress is not a cause of IBS, but it can absolutely exacerbate symptoms. And I interviewed a lot of young people for my book, and around 3/4 of those that I interviewed said that stress has a negative impact on their symptoms. So, it's absolutely really wise to look for as many strategies as you can. So what are some of those strategies? Exercise. In any form, research shows that exercise improves IBS symptoms. Anxiety, quality of life, all of those improve with exercise. So if you're at college, chances are you have access to a gym, to facilities that maybe you didn't have at home. So take advantage of those. Meditation is also wonderful. It can be very effective, and you can do it from home. You can do it without a lot of time. An app like Headspace is a really great place to start. Yoga, if there's a yoga class for you to plug into at school. Research shows that yoga can be a very effective strategy in managing IBS. And therapy, and various types of therapy. So talk therapy, maybe the Student Health Center has some therapists that you can talk to, probably free of charge, or for a very low cost. And on the website too, on the FODMAP Everyday site, there are different gut-directed hypnotherapy and gut-directed biofeedback. There are a lot of different adjuncts that you can look for and turn to. So I really recommend exploring those.
Yes, Robin just put up the links. We have a yoga series that her daughter is writing and leading, and there really are many different strategies. Well, this has been great. I think that this information is exactly the information that young people need as they're embarking out on their own. And again, this video will be here for reference if you are a parent and happen to catch our time chatting with Rachel and you want to show this to your child, your young adult, they're not children anymore. It will be here for you. And so Rachel, hold up your book. Let's plug your book one more time. So if your young adult is going away, we have a Teen's Guide to Gut Health, The Low FODMAP Way. Would be a great book to send them off with. Of course, I have my book that I co-authored with Kate Scarlatta, The Low FODMAP Diet Step by Step. Those two books together should have you covered. And as you mentioned, they should have the Monash University smartphone app. It is available for Android and iPhone. And if they do not have a smartphone, you can actually, through Monash, get a hard copy of, it's kind of an equivalent, a little booklet, which is something that you could keep in your backpack. So definitely some great resources. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We've been chatting with Rachel Meltzer Warren. She's one of our Success Team registered dietitians. She specializes in teens and young adults. She has a private practice in Jersey City, New Jersey, and is available. If you're lucky enough to be near her, you could go and consult with her directly. And you can reach me or Rachel through the site. So come visit us at FODMAP every day. And Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you, Day Day. This was great.
Well, we'll see all of you again soon. Bye-bye.